the Wild have been able to slow Eichel down. They've been able to slow Hurdle down outside of Game 1. Even Mark Stone, Barbashev, Deforiev. Welcome to the Checking From Behind podcast. Today is April 26, 2025. I'm your host, Zach, and unfortunately, Preston was unable to join me this weekend. However, I was able to snag somebody off the streets to join me on today's episode, Matt. Matt, how's it going today? Thank you for being, I don't know, called up, I guess you could call
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, we've been talking about getting me on here for the last however long you've actually been doing this. So it's good to come out and clearly, we're trying to represent Vegas today. We want Vegas to, well, I want Vegas to win personally, but I'm sure you have a different opinion. But
Yeah, I don't have nothing against Vegas anymore. I'm more, I've talked about the Wild the entire season and, hyping them up, and now I hope they prove me right, even though I picked Vegas to win the series in 5 games. But we have an action-packed episode today. We're going to be going through every single series, breaking them down from the past week, entering the second full week of the NHL playoffs. Let's start out in the Eastern Conference with the Battle of Ontario. Toronto against the Ottawa Senators. Even with the Sens down 3-0, they haven't looked that bad. We saw them in Game 3. It looked like they finally settled in, especially on home ice. And it looks like maybe at one point the Senators could have a chance to steal a game and only be down 2-1 instead of 3-0. However, though, the Toronto Maple Leafs eventually won it in overtime, and it's unfortunate for the Senators because I believe in Game 2 they lost in overtime as well. They could easily be up 2-1 in this series, but of course, nothing matters in the playoffs except wins, and that really shows from the Toronto Maple Leafs perspective that it looks like they clearly have been here before, and Ottawa looks like a team that is very inexperienced.
yeah, unfortunately, the first game there on Easter, game one, the Toronto power play just absolutely shredded the Senators. I mean, the Senators came out there and I think that they had it in their mind that they had to play that aggressive, physical style of hockey that you see in the playoffs. Because you look at it and Stützle making all those extra hits, Brady Chuck's going out of his way to make that physical play. I think you're seeing that a lot from them in games 2 and 3. They definitely settled into their actual game. You saw a lot closer, even though there were points where the Leafs were able to keep them from even having a shot on goal for like 10 minutes or whatever it was in both periods. They still looked a lot better. They actually had those ties. And, like you said, there are a couple of lucky bounces away from being 2-1 in the series. So even though it is the only series so far that is 3-0, I still think that the Senators could pull something off here. It's unlikely at this point, but I could see them getting a couple wins.
Yeah, and the Senators could definitely make this a series, especially if they play like how they did in games 2 and 3, because the luck for the Maple Leafs compared to the Senators has frankly been absurd. And the Senators look, as the series goes on, they keep looking better and better. And that goes to say with better performances from Allmark as well, who in game one didn't look great, but also the Senator players in front of them were taking stupid penalties. They were taking costly penalties, which didn't help Allmark's case at all. In games 2 and 3, he's looked much better. And I'm looking for him to, in game 4 tonight at 7 p.m., I'm looking for, if the Senators can just play clean hockey and continue what they've been doing in games 2 and 3 and get strong play from Allmark, they could definitely have a game 5 back in Toronto in a couple nights. And Ottawa, I'm not expecting them to come back down 3-0 and reverse sweep the Maple Leafs, but at least make this a series. Like, I'm not saying that it's not a series now, but make this go to 6 games, for example, right? Make Toronto work for it a little bit, like how Toronto made Boston work for it last year. Toronto was down 3-1 in the first round against Boston, took the Bruins all the way to 7 games, and eventually lost in overtime 2-1. And I'm not comparing the Senators to the Bruins by any means, but the
Sounds like you are.
the Maple Leafs at least work for it. And going over to the Maple Leafs side, their depth has been great. I believe they have 4 goals from their blue line, which is tied for the most among any team in the playoffs at the moment. Getting great goaltending from Solars. And the scariest part about this, if you're the rest of the league, is the Maple Leafs, it doesn't feel like they're playing their best hockey right now. Like, They are a product of winning their division, playing against a very young and inexperienced wildcard team that hasn't made the playoffs since 2017. You have a quote-unquote tune-up, per se, and then if you can hold on to this 3-0 lead, which if Toronto doesn't, no, something's wrong. But if they hold on to this 3-0 lead, they go play Tampa or Florida. Now they have 4, 5, 6 games under their belt of playing playoff hockey. Now you can lock in to play your best hockey and have Tampa and Florida beat up on each other like they have been the first 3 games of the series. And moving on to that series, they just played game 3 earlier today, and Tampa won in convincing fashion 5-1. Series is now 2-1 in favor of Florida. A home team has not yet ended up winning a game in that series, but Tampa in game 1, they did not look great. Game 2, they looked a little bit better, but they just couldn't score. The Panthers were suffocating them on defense. In game 3, with Brendan Hagel suspended from that hit he had on Barkov late in game 2, they come out and they punch Florida in the mouth. And right from the get-go, when the Panthers went up 1-0, it was like Tampa might be done here, but it was very early, and then Tampa scored 5 unanswered to win. But Tampa, as the series has gone on, has looked better defensively, and don't count them out. They could honestly win the next 3 games and win the series in 6 games, but still expecting it to go 7.
Yeah, I mean, well, honestly, I think if you were to poll almost everyone who watches hockey, fills out a bracket, anything, if you said who, in your opinion, is going to the Cup in the East, chances are, I would say, at least 75% of them would say, oh, it's whoever comes out of Tampa, Florida. You know what I mean? That's the kind of series that we're seeing. Both of these teams have done in the past. They've both gone on long cup runs. They know what they're doing. They have great depth. I think it's almost similar to that Toronto and Ottawa series where you see Florida take that big lead in game 1, and then in game 2 and 3, you're seeing Tampa actually kind of calm down a bit, get to their game a little bit more. Obviously, the Lightning are a lot more experienced than the Senators are, but I do think that Tampa is a team that they've been there before. Even if they were down in that hole, going down 2-0 to start the series, they're a team that you could easily see come back there. You're seeing a lot of good stuff from Gensel, which is great. I mean, you need a guy like him. They don't have Stamkos anymore. They need a guy like Gensel to step up. And like you mentioned too, there's no Hagel in game 3. That's everyone thought that was going to be a really big loss. He's such an important player for the team, and they ended up winning anyway. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. He comes back. They're going to be in Florida again. We'll see what happens. Hagel comes in. You've got a team that's got such good depth. You got Cirelli, one of the top two-way guys in the league. You got Kucherov, who just won the Art Ross. You've got Gensel. Like I said, I think he's going to be your X factor. If he gets hot, if he gets scoring, there's really no player in the league, in my opinion, that can just kind of turn into the Incredible Hulk over the postseason and just absolutely put the team on his shoulder. I mean, you see it from McDavid's and Tkachuk's, all those. But think about the times when Pittsburgh was winning the cup. Who was probably their best forward outside of Crosby? It was pretty much Gensel. I mean, the guy can score. That's all he does is score important goals, big goals. He's the guy I'm looking at.
Going to Gensel, TNT on the panel, they mentioned against on the post-game interview that he's 6th all-time in postseason goals. They never said active players or not. I would assume it's active players. I'd have to fact check that, but still, whether it's active players, I highly doubt it's all time. But still, that's very impressive.
So Ovechkin's like 12th.
He is a goal scorer, and Tampa Bay without Hagel, I thought they were going to go down 3-0, and they looked phenomenal. And did you end up watching the game at all today?
I watched some of it when I was having lunch, and I missed the third, but I did see most of it.
Did you see the hit that Matthew Tkachuk laid on Gensel?
I mean, obviously the guy got thrown out.
Yeah.
So, that's a pretty big loss for him. Do you think there's going to be any discipline or anything? I mean, is this a scene where the NHL looks at this and says, all right, you know what? These guys have been rivals for the last few years. You see Hagel deliver that big hit, and now you're seeing Tkachuk get into it. You think that there's going to be anything to this?
I think so. I think what happened with Hagel in game 3, you suspended for one game. Got to give Matthew Tkachuk your sussy for game 1. They feel like
Mhm.
very similar hits, except sure, Barkov never touched the puck, but he went to go reach for it. He missed it, and Hagel was already going for the hip, and he could have let up a little bit, but obviously, like tensions are high and everything. And the same thing with Kachuk. Gensel clearly has the puck on his stick. He passes it. He's admiring the pass, but whether it was in slow motion or in full real speed, that late hit was very late. And I think Kachuk could have
Yeah.
easily at least let up. I'm not saying that he should have not hit him at all. Like that would have been ideal, but there was no let up at all. And I think that was Matthew Kachuk's kind of way in being like, you're going to hit our fucking captain. We're going to go after one of your best players, whether he has the puck or not. He saw that opportunity late in the game. They were already down 4-1, well 5-1 at that point because the pass led to an empty net goal right away, and he did it. And if he gets suspended for one game, I think that's the right call. But if the NHL just gives him a fine or they don't suspend him at all, I'm not going to sit here being like the NHL are hypocrites. But I do think they have to go in the direction of a suspension for him.
That's going to be a big loss. I mean, the guy obviously came back for game 1, and he looked great. I mean, was he got like 3 goals or something like that already?
Yeah.
He's been huge, and taking a guy like him, I mean, he is the if you ask me, he is the perfect playoff player. The guy, he hits, he fights, he's strong, he shoots, he scores. He does everything that you want done, especially in the playoffs. You take him off that team, and that's going to be pretty big.
Yeah, and especially with the Florida team that didn't look great today. I know Florida has a ton of depth, but I would like to see guys like Verhaeghe and Reinhart get going. Ekblad had a few opportunities today back from his 20-game suspension, but I mean, I would like to see if Kachuk does end up getting suspended. I would like to see Reinhart get a goal. I'd like to see Verhaeghe get a goal and get going because those two players were two main parts on the why the Florida Panthers are back-to-back Eastern Conference champions, including Stanley Cup champions last year. The next series on our agenda, the Canadiens against the Capitals. This series has surprised me in a little bit of a way because the Capitals, even though they're up 2-1, the Canadiens have looked good in games 2 and 3. Game 1, again, it felt the same way as the Senators, where they just didn't know what playoff hockey was. A very young and inexperienced team. The last time they were in the playoffs was that 2021 season when they made it all the way to the Cup final, eventually losing to the Lightning. But the Canadiens, they've hung in there in terms of they were able to snag a win at the Bell Center in Game 3, avoid going down 3-0. Caulfield has been great. Slavkovsky has been great. And I've loved the play of Sam Montembeault, who unfortunately went down with an injury yesterday, which is a huge blow for them because he's kept them in this series. And of course, on the other side, Logan Thompson, he ended up taking a cross check from his own teammate Dylan Strome on Slavkovsky's goal late in the third period to make it a 5-3 game or 5-2 game, whatever it was. And if Logan Thompson can't go, I don't know how I feel about the Capitals making a deeper playoff run for this series. I'll take my chances lingering against Dobish, or Dobash, however you pronounce his name, every single day of the week. But I'm hoping that Logan Thompson, if he has to miss this series, that's okay. But then if you have to go play a Carolina in round 2, and now you're sitting there with Charlie Lindgren against Frederick Anderson, I would start to get a little bit concerned.
Yeah, honestly, this is prob of all the series, this one's probably the one that surprised me the most. Not because I didn't think that the Canadians were good or anything, but just because, they're a team that comes in last second, they get the 8th seed, the second wild card, and they're going up against the team that's pretty much been hot all year, outside of a little bit of a lull at the end there. But I mean, Charlie Lindgren, even though he wasn't as good as Logan Thompson this season, he's still been a really good goaltender. I mean, his playoff stats don't look good, but I remember I was looking at the score yesterday, and they were showing the stats. I mean, his 4 games before yesterday came against the Rangers last year when the Capitals were pretty bad, just kind of lucked into that based off a defensive game that they were playing. And, they faced off the Rangers, who were the President's Trophy winners. So, you take a look at Charlie Lindgren's stats. I mean, he hasn't been bad. He had just under a 9 .900 save percentage, a 894. He had a 273 goals against. I mean, he's definitely not a bad goalie, and I do like him a lot better than other ones, and especially against what's going on in Montreal's goal. But like you said, the young guys are stepping up. Suzuki and Caulfield, Slavkovsky, they've been great, and they're definitely making it hard on the Capitals. I mean, honestly, if you ask me, the best part of the playoffs so far was what happened last night with Wilson and Anderson on the bench. And just after, I mean, that was incredible. I loved every second of it. I was texting you and I was like, this is incredible. And it's just something that was awesome. It's great to see. And honestly, I think TNT, ESPN, whoever, they're going to be using that as their, like, video montage going forward for the rest of these playoffs and then in the future.
Yeah, I was like half asleep, and I ended up turning the game off like probably halfway through the second. I'm getting a text like, "Did you just see what happened?" I'm like, "No," or whatever. And I went on there, and that was ridiculous. Everybody coming off the bench, and here comes Tom Wilson and Anderson literally onto the bench. But I didn't. Going to TNT and ESPN, I did not like the commentators being like, "Oh man," like if it sounded so like dull, like boring. They didn't make it exciting, and maybe that's me nitpicking and everything. But like sitting and be like, "Oh, like we have something going on in the bench," like almost like just like a normal conversation. Like give me the goddamn commentators screaming at the top of their lungs, like how you have all the regional commentators. But with the Capitals, I'm very impressed with Ryan Leonard, even though he only has the point in 3 games. He looks so confident out there, whether he's with the puck, off the puck. He's being very physical. And we saw one of the goals that he ended up, that Chikrin scored, Ryan Leonard's up in Canadians players' faces, like screaming in their faces. Like he's not scared of these players, of these 25, 30 plus year olds physically. And even though Ryan Leonard is a very smaller guy, he's making plays with the puck. He's getting at the Strom. He's getting at the Ovechkin. He's getting some power. He got some power play one time when Tom Wilson has been in the box. Like this dude has showed up, and he hasn't necessarily showed out and produced on the score sheet. But with the team so deep, like Washington, he doesn't need to do that. And he's hanging in with the big boys. And if the Capitals go on a run, I'd expect his play only to get better and better and better, especially if he starts getting more top-line minutes. And going over to Ovechkin, 3 goals in 3 games. He's proved me wrong so far. I thought before the postseason that Ovi would not be able to keep up his pace of scoring .6 goals per game or whatever his regular season pace was, and he has 3 goals in 4 games, including 2 in game 1. So Ovechkin looks fired up. He looks rejuvenated. This team looks great, and they have shown Montreal. Granted, Montreal's hung in there. They showed Montreal like who's the big boy in this series, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, Ryan Leonard, if you ask me, I think he's the Calder winner next season. And real quick on that, like you said, he is acting like he's the biggest guy out there and he's doing all those things right. Well, it's definitely not difficult to do that when you know that Tom Wilson's your backup and he can jump out there, and you also have the absolute tank that is Ovechkin and just all the guys on that team. I mean, this is a team that I think definitely can make some noise out there. Um, when you have Ovechkin, I think he is a very emotional guy, and he's got the emotions going right now. He's into it. He's loving it. He just became the goal leader all time. I think he's sitting there going, all right, I want to end this season with the goal record and another cup. And I think that he's going to go everything he can do, balls to the wall 24/7 to make sure he gets there.
Before we move on, let me ask you this. If the Capitals go on and win the Stanley Cup, even though Ovi has a year or 2 left on his current contract, is he going out and like retiring with the cup and the goal record?
Now, I think he wants to keep that record going. Especially too the way that the Capitals are going with all their young guys, Leonard, Protas, all these guys. I think that if they win the cup, which again is a big if, I do think that could probably sit there and say, yeah, we could probably do it again.
Yeah, go for that.
And I mean, not like, let's face this too, it would not be surprising if he wanted to tie Crosby's cup wins. So again, if, and that's a big if, they win this year, I bet he sits there and goes, yeah, I want the goal record. I want the hits record. I want to have the same number of cups as Crosby. And I want to just do everything that I can to be the best Russian player, to be the best everything he could be.
And that's his competitive spirit. I wouldn't hate that at all. I mean, that seems like an OV thing. The last series in the Eastern Conference, the one that I feel like has been most boring, the Hurricanes against the Devils. The series is 2-1 Carolina, though. New Jersey did steal a game at the Prudential Center last night. Simone Nemec with a very weird goal in double overtime to win it. I felt like Anderson should have had that. But outside of game 3, the Canes have completely dominated the series. They were already without Jack Hughes for this entire series and this entire season after a shoulder injury. And then in game 1, you lose Brendan Dillon, you lose Luke Hughes, Cody Glass goes down, and it's looking like everything is falling apart in front of the Devils fans' eyes and in front of the organization's eyes. Game 2, the Canes smacked the Devils. They dominated in shots and puck possession just like game 1. Game 3 was a little bit different. I know the Canes dominated for a lot of that game, but the Devils were able to squeak out a win, and I didn't think this was going to be a sweep. But I did feel like the Canes were going to probably winning 5 games, and right now it's still looking like that. But, I mean, Markstrom is the sole reason on why the Devils are in the series and why the series, frankly, isn't 3-0 and why they don't have a goal differential of -10.
Right. You know, like you said, I mean, I guess it's a series, okay, whatever.
Mm,
I don't know. To me, I'm not into it. Yesterday, I watched the Montreal Washington game first because I was like, this one's fun. Like, we just talked about how fun that was with Wilson
mm-hmm,
and Anderson. And then I was like, oh, hey, LA Edmonton starting up. And I was kind of following along with the Devils Hurricanes one. And then I said, okay, I'll watch it because they're tied late and all this. I do think that the Devils played a pretty good overtime. It seemed like they were getting shots and shots and shots, but obviously Carolina, you know what they do. They have that strong two-way game. They block shots. They keep people to the perimeter. They don't let you in close. I mean, I remember there was one point yesterday in the overtime where the Devils had like 3 wide open nets where they could score, but of course they're beyond the circles, and you've got the Hurricanes in there who end up crashing through to block the shots, and then the puck leaves the zone and they got to restart it. It's one of those games where I'm just not interested in it.
mm-hmm.
Not, I'll ask you this: do you really think that Jack Hughes, if he was in this game, if he was in this series, it would be more exciting, or do you think that you know even if Hughes was in here, this is the Hurricanes we're talking about? It was just going to be like this anyway.
Yeah, I think it was going to be like this anyway because Jack Hughes is in the same boat as like Jesper Brett and Nico Hischier, where they only have 2 series coming into this playoff series under their belt, and against a very experienced Carolina team that has Stanley Cup aspirations, and that Rob Brendamore system with this team is just so suffocating. They play this trap defense. They play this lockdown defense. They keep you to the outside. They limit shots. They are very aggressive defensively when they need to be. And then offensively, they just control the puck a lot. They get point shots. They get low shots. They crash the net. They are this team that, we don't see a lot of teams like Carolina now, where most teams in the league are very fast. They want to beat you in transition, up the ice, on the rush, whatever. Carolina's like, we can beat you on the rush if we want to, but we're gonna get the puck in the zone. We're gonna set up. We're gonna possess the puck like almost if it was a power play. We're gonna tire your guys out and then capitalize on your mistakes and on how tired your guys are. And it does help that Frederik Andersen has a 148 goals against average and a 950 save percentage in the series, which I had my doubts coming into the series with him, and right now he has proven me wrong. He has played great hockey. He's making phenomenal saves. Now, granted, the Hurricanes are only allowing about, I think, like 23 shots per game on the Devils, so that helps a lot. It helps out Anderson a ton. But I do think a lot of the Hurricane system, they would still be able to stop Jack Hughes. He tried to carry the puck into the
Mhm.
offensive zone, and they would just poke it off his stick or force him to dump it into the corner, just knock him off the puck because Jack Hughes isn't the type of guy where he's going to carry it into the zone and either make a couple guys miss or he's going to end up getting attempted to get knocked off the puck and he still hangs on to the puck or he can fight for it. He gets knocked off the puck pretty easily. And I'm not saying that the Hurricanes would dominate the way they were, but I don't think one player necessarily being out of the lineup makes a huge difference unless you're McDavid, McKinnon, Draisaitl, whatever, maybe like a top-tier superstar player. And I don't think Jack Hughes is in that tier of a superstar player. I think he's very good to elite category, but Jack Hughes wouldn't change the series for me at all.
Yeah. Honestly, if the Devils want to actually be in this thing, we already said Markstrom's got to be the guy. He's the guy holding them together here. But I got to see more out of Timo Meier. I mean, the guy, he was. Remember when he was in San Jose? The whole thing was that he was this big body and he was strong and he can score and he can get in front of the net. He's got one assist.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to be better. You're looking at a guy like him. They gave up a lot to get him. He should be a guy that you should be looking at, especially in the playoffs, and saying this guy should be built for the playoffs. I mean, he should be that kind of guy that you look at and you go like, remember when Evander Kane made his first playoff debut a few years back with the Sharks, and it was like, wow, this guy was built to play playoff hockey. I was hoping you'd see that from Timo Meier and he could actually be the guy for them, especially now that Hughes is out. But I mean, he had 26 goals in the regular season. 3 games in, he's got 1 assist, 6 penalty minutes.
Timo Meier has not shown up at all, and the Devils brought him in to help their top 6, and they paid him $8 million to show up in the playoffs. And any playoff series at all, Timo Meier is not. And I'd be a little bit concerned because Timo Meier, even coming into this season, he hasn't had a great career with the Devils so far. He looked much better this season, but you're looking for more from Timo Meier. I 100% agree from that. And outside of really Bratt and Hischier, you're not getting production from any of your forwards at all. And I do feel like we talked about already, Markstrom's holding them in. The Devils defensively, it feels like at some points are holding on for dear life where every time they get the puck in the defensive zone, they just have to flip it out because either A, the Hurricanes are on the forecheck right away, or B, they've been out there for so long, they're so gassed, they just flip it out and they go for a line change, and it's a cycle until they can, have the Hurricanes basically cough up the puck themselves. So, yeah, I agree. I'm not very interested in the series, and I'm definitely focusing more on the rest of the series, whether it's just in the East or the Western Conference. Quick time out before we get back to the episode, you beauties. As someone like myself who's into fitness and needs a little bit of an extra boost before a lift, or maybe I need just a little bit of energy before my next hockey game, and even when doing pod stuff to bring you guys the best content possible, W always has me covered. Whether you needed to stay awake at work or need a little bit of a jolt to get you through the day, W will always provide you that spark you need. There's no sugar, no crash, no artificial flavors or artificial dyes, just flavored caffeine. 150 milligrams of caffeine and 1 serving, which is equivalent to 2 cups of coffee. Make sure to head over to w.gg and use code CFB Pod for 10% off any order. And with the Western Conference, the series that has very surprised me has been the Edmonton against LA Kings series, with LA being up 2-1. And I'm more surprised at how exciting it's been because the first 3 years, it's been very boring. We've seen Edmonton dominate LA, and I know LA tied their points record at 105, their franchise points record, that is. But LA offensively, they have a spark. They go out and get Kuzmenko at the deadline. He has been one of their best players in the postseason so far. Kempe has been phenomenal. They have got scoring up and down their lineup. And this is even with a guy like McDavid going for 4 points in game 1. And even though they almost blew it, they still won, which was a huge positive. And last night wasn't their greatest game. I felt like Edmonton had a little bit more juice, even though they were down 2 in the third, because they're in front of their home fans. And Bouchard making up for some of his costly defensive mistakes the entire series with a crucial goal. So, a pass from Draisaitl, by the way. So, the series has been exciting, and I'm still expecting the Oilers to hang around and at least take this to 6 to 7 games. But, again, this is the best Kings team that we've ever seen in this new era, and the Kings look great, and I'm expecting them to move on eventually.
Yeah, when I first sat down and looked at this, I said, all right, you know what? The Oilers, they won the last 3 years. All right. Is it going to be the same thing? I said, no, it's not. The Kings are the better team. They're deeper. And you look at the Oilers, if they don't have McDavid or Draisaitl doing McDavid and Draisaitl things, what else do they have? They,
Right.
they're really not a team that you can sit there and go, oh yeah, Ryan Nugent Hopkins, he's the real answer there. I mean, yeah, he's a good player. Kane, like I said, I think he's a playoff built guy. Corey Perry, he's another one of those like Kachuk types where he puts everything on the line and he hits you and he does everything. But I mean, if the Kings can hold McDavid and Draisaitl off, not even keep them off the scoreboard, but just kind of contain them, then they can let their depth do all the work. You take a look at the Oilers teams over the last few seasons. They've had guys like Fogle, like Holloway, like Broberg. All those guys are gone. Now they're a little bit older. Yeah, they have the experience. They made it to the game 7 last year, but they just don't excite me outside of those two players. Bouchard, I mean, yeah, he can do some cool stuff, but you know what? They are desperately missing Matthias Ekholm. He is the guy who, if he was healthy, I look at this series and say, maybe I could see Edmonton going all the way through it. But I mean, he's not healthy. The Kings are up 2-1. Honestly, I do think the Kings will win it in 5 or 6. But the important thing to look at in this series, I think, that is kind of the glaring weakness of both these teams so far is the goaltending. I mean, Stuart Skinner, he has not looked good. He's got a 6.11 goals against and an 810 save percentage. They go with Picard yesterday. All right, great. But he wins the game, all that, but he's got a 4.32 and an 8.9 or an 839. And you think, well, okay, like we said, they're missing Ekholm. Look at the Kings. Kemper, I think he's been good throughout this year, but right now he's got a 4.04 goals against and an 859. I mean, it's not that good.
This series is lacking defense or goaltending. And I didn't expect Darcy Kemper to come in here and light it up because you are facing a McDavid and you are facing a Draisaitl and a team that can score offensively. And then Edmonton's goaltending, this was my concern coming into the series, was the Oilers in front of Stuart Skinner or Pickard, when healthy, not that bad. They could get past the Kings and at least get into the second round. But Stuart Skinner, I thought, would have to go on another heater, and McDavid and Draisaitl and Bouchard would have to put up more record-breaking numbers like they did last year for them to get far in the playoffs. And even though McDavid and Draisaitl are putting up, I would say numbers of their caliber, with McDavid having 7 points in 3 games and Draisaitl with 5-3. And you have Bouchard with 5-3. But outside of that, they're not getting a ton of scoring from their depth unless it's either in garbage time or in a game in which they ended up winning 7-4 last night. So this series has been entertaining offensively wise, and I'd expect it to continue like this. And who knows, maybe the goaltending will eventually show up. But if the Oilers want to have a shot in this series, I think McDavid has to get another 5 points at least minimum. And
Mhm.
going to your point about the Kings shutting McDavid and Draisaitl down, again, they don't have to shut them down completely. Just slow them down and make the Oilers' depth beat you, because we saw in game 1 when the Kings were dominating the Oilers, they weren't letting McDavid or Draisaitl enter the zone and clear cleanly. And then in that third period, we saw the Kings backing up a little bit and giving McDavid that space. And that's when he was able to find Draisaitl down the seam. That's when McDavid was able to drive the net and tie the game. And of course, we all know what happened with the no 40 seconds later. But the Oilers are definitely not out of this, but they do need McDavid and Draisaitl to basically carry the team on their back to at least get past the Kings. And hopefully Ekholm is back for round 2 if they make it that far.
Yeah, you know that meme where it's like the hydrogen bomb versus the coughing baby?
Yes.
Like, this is essentially that, but instead of them being against each other, that's just the Oilers roster. You have the hydrogen bomb that is McDavid and Draisaitl, and then the rest of the team is just the coughing baby.
That's
So
funny.
I mean, it's the best of both worlds there. You've got elite talent, and then you're looking at the rest of the team going, "Ew."
It's like that Lambo with like that porch, and that's McDavid and Draisaitl, and then you have like that
Yeah.
rusted house, and that's the Oilers. Oh, let's go over to your series, the Vegas Golden Knights against the Minnesota Wild. This series again has surprised me, but Minnesota right now is up in the series 2-1, and as we're recording, they are up 2-1 in Game 4 as well. Game 1, Vegas looked like the much better team. I know Minnesota came out, they came to play in Game 1. They were physical, they were able to hang with Vegas, and of course, Vegas showed that experience that we've been to multiple Cup finals. We have a Cup final win. Like, we can come out and win these tight, close games, and that Minnesota isn't used to winning. And then Game 2, Minnesota came out on top. Game 3, they looked just as good, and it was like, oh, here's Minnesota. And now Game 4, Vegas is down 2-1. And of course, Vegas, I would like to see more production out of Eichel, because if Eichel gets going, Vegas can win the series in 6 games. They can rattle off 3 straight. And the second Eichel gets going, this team could find themselves in the Stanley Cup Finals. I think Vegas does have a shot, but it's just the Wild have been able to slow Eichel down. They've been able to slow Hurdle down outside of Game 1. Even Mark Stone, Barbashev, Deforiev, like, this team, I want to see more from them. But credit to Minnesota, though. Kaprizov and Boldy have looked great. Gustafsson has hung in there. And Eriksson, again, has looked phenomenal. And they're getting a ton of scoring from the depth, which I think was my thing coming into the series, was I didn't think the Wild had enough depth coming in against the Vegas team that's been counted out coming into the season. They end up third in the Pacific Division. And sorry, first in the Pacific Division, excuse me. And I thought their depth was a lot better than the Wild, and right now we're seeing the exact opposite at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we just talked about the hydrogen bombs that are McDavid and Draisaitl, but I mean, Kaprizov, he is his own hydrogen bomb. I mean, you think about it because he missed so much of the season. You kind of forget that
Mm-hmm.
or at the first half of the season, he was probably most people's heart pick. He was absolutely dominant for the first half of the season. Then he gets hurt, and then the Wild really struggled, and they obviously made the playoffs, so they were good enough to do that. But it's like he has brought an absolute new life into this group. Gustafsson is making the big saves, and they're doing exactly what you said. They're making Vegas slow. Vegas is a fast team. They've been really good both ways in terms of offense and defense. And here you are having Minnesota, who's scoring the big goals. Did I say Arizona? Minnesota.
Yeah.
Sorry. Minnesota scoring the big goals. Kaprizov, Boldy, Rossi, Foligno, these guys are doing everything they have to do. And I mean, look, it's no secret, rep in Vegas. I know, I'm going to get a lot of crap on me for that, but you know, they are a team that, like you said, they have the experience. They've won the cup, and I'm not saying that. I'm not making excuses. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying. I'm curious to know, are guys like Eichel and Stone fully healthy? I'm not blaming that, but we all know that Eichel missed some time at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Then he came back. He was close to hitting that 100-point mark, and he had to miss some time. He sat out a few games. I wonder if he's actually healthy or if he's playing through something, because that would explain why you're not really seeing the production that you saw during the regular season. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, Vegas needs to get these guys going. I do believe that Bruce Cassidy is the coach who can really get them going. I mean, right now, Minnesota is on the power play as we speak, but Vegas is out shooting them 19-12
Mm-hmm.
with 7 minutes left in the second. So realistically, would it surprise you if Vegas kind of turns it on in the third, scores 3 goals, and brings it back to the fortress?
No, not at all. I mean, Vegas is capable of doing that, and I mean that's a valid point. That's not an excuse too. We see in the NHL playoffs all the time, players struggle, and then when the team gets eliminated or wins the cup, whatever, comes out that they're dealing with 3 different injuries that the average human being wouldn't even be able to walk. Like, everybody was
Right.
wondering in the last year's finals, from Dallas on, in the Western Conference Finals through the finals, where was Draisaitl? He was
Hmm.
completely ghost. Turns out he had 2 or 3 separate injuries that his body was basically breaking down. He was being used as a decoy. And with an Eichel situation and with the Stone situation, I mean, they're not nearly creating as many chances as they did in the regular season. In the Wild, they're no juggernaut. So, again, I wonder if they're dealing with something, and you brought up a good point there. And going to Minnesota's side, Kaprizov, before he went down with an injury in December, he had like 20 goals in 26 games or something. He was on a ridiculous pace. And I'm going to give myself flowers like I always do. He was my preseason Hart Trophy pick, and he was looking great. And of course, goes down. And this team is nothing without Kaprizov. And then you lose Eriksson Act 2 for an extended period of time. The Wild struggled for, like you expect them to. And at one point, it was like, is this team going to miss the playoffs? And they held their head above water, and now they're here, coming as a wild card team, and felt like a lot of people, including myself, really underrated them coming into the postseason because I would look at recency bias and be like, this team has struggled coming into the playoffs, and nobody really dug deep into missing Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek. And even though I preached that missing those two was a huge loss and was a reason why the Wild were playing at subpar hockey, I didn't think it'd be that much of a difference because I really thought Vegas would take control of the series. And like you said, Vegas has controlled a lot of the series too. It's just the Wild have capitalized on their opportunities, whereas Vegas hasn't outside of game one. And that's why the series is down 2-1. And the shots are heavily in favor of Vegas right now. And like you said, Vegas could come out in a third period, score 2 quick goals. Now they're up 3-2 with still 10 minutes left in the third. And then lock it down defensively, score an empty netter. Now they win 4-2. So there's a lot of hockey to be left to played in this series.
Yeah, real quick, you take a look at the box scores. So game one, Vegas had 27 shots as opposed to Minnesota's 20, so they still controlled the game there. But here's the big thing. You take a look at game one. You look at the power play percentage. Vegas scored on both of their power plays. So that was right there is 2 power play goals. You go to game two, and what do you see? Vegas didn't have a single power play. Then you go to game three, they had Minnesota took 4 penalties. Vegas didn't have another power play goal. So you're taking a look at that and you're saying, all right, if you want Vegas to come in here, you want Vegas to win these games, they got to get their power play going. Granted, like I said, game two, there were no penalties really that they were able to take advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
But you take a look in game three, if they're on the man advantage 4 times, they got to be getting a goal in there. I mean, that could be the difference between going up 3-1 and making the game 2-2. I mean, that's something they got to get going here. They did get one today, that first one, Shea Theodore there. But you take a look at it, and Vegas still has had 2 other power plays that they did not score on. I think the power play is going to be a big thing for Vegas. If they can get their power play going, whether it's Eichel, whether it's Barbashev, whether it's Olofsson, then I think that's what they're going to need to do to really get in there.
I do kind of like that take because looking at the advanced analytics here, Vegas right now is second in the entire playoffs in Corsi percentage at 58.79, and of course the Senators are first on that. And then expected goals percentage, Vegas is sitting at 57.1%, which is only trailing Winnipeg and Dallas out of any team qualified for the playoffs. And Minnesota is on the exact opposite side of the spectrum at 14 and 15 respectively. Minnesota on the power play, they've been kind of next to Vegas at expected goals percentage at 93% and Corsi percentage at around 89%. So 5-on-5, Vegas is dominating, but the Wild have just been able to cash on the opportunities and credit to Kaprizov and Boldy and Rossi and Foligno and all the guys we mentioned. So I think this series is far from over. Even if the Wild go up 3-1, Vegas does have the capabilities to come back down from 3-1 and win this series in 7 games. The next series on our agenda, Dallas versus Colorado. This was my series to be the best series out of any first-round matchup. And right now the Stars lead 2-1, and I believe they've led for a total of 67 seconds or something is what I saw after Game 3. Colorado has looked like the better team, even with getting Landeskog back in Game 3. The Stars are without Robo and Miro Heiskanen for at least a minimum of one more game tonight. And granted, Sagan coming back into the lineup has been a huge boost for Dallas. but not having your two best players hurts you. And the fact that the Stars are up 2-1 instead of potentially being down 3-0 is a huge sign, because after game one, I thought my Dallas Stars to go to the Cup final is in jeopardy because the Avalanche looks so much faster than them, even in games 2 and 3. Ottinger has been played great, and credit to Blackwood too, has played phenomenal as well. But the Stars have just been able to come up with those crucial goals in overtime in game 2 and 3, which is why they're up 2-1 and not down 0-3.
Yeah, I think one of the big things with this series, everyone walked into it thinking, all right, well, you have, when healthy, a really strong matchup because you got Makar and you got Miro and you have McKinnon and you have Robertson and you have all these great players on both sides. And obviously, Dallas came into it. They don't have Robertson. They don't have Miro to start. And I think a lot of people started to think, all right, well, Colorado's going to just kind of roll over them. And they kind of did in game one. But you take a look at the last two games, what you're seeing, though, in my opinion at least, is you're getting the production from McKinnon and you're getting it from right now Logan O'Connor, who's got 4 points, 3 assists there. But you're not seeing anything from Brock Nelson. You're really not seeing anything from Marty Niklas. Those two right now combined for 3 games, only 1 assist. You're not seeing it from Wood. Obviously, Landeskog just came back, so you'll see what happens there. But you take a look at Dallas, and granted, they haven't been scoring as much, but you take a look, and pretty much everyone's been involved outside of like Duchesne. I mean, you're seeing the contribution. Jamie Benn, he's got 2 points. He's got a goal and assist. You got Marchman, who's got 2 assists. Sagan, who's got 2 goals. You've got Blackwell, who's scoring the game winner in game 2. You have these guys who are kind of stepping up, and I really think that that's what's going on here, is that you're seeing Ottinger beating Blackwood, even though both of them are playing great. Ottinger's still been the better goalie, so they have the advantage in that. And then when you have those guys like Blackwell stepping up, that's huge, because everyone knows that in the Stanley Cup playoffs, the only thing that really matters is wins and depth. And the teams that have the depth always end up coming through. Again, maybe we'll see in the next game a guy like Brock Nelson kind of takes over. But realistically, when that trade went down, everyone said, "Oh man, this is big. Where's he been?"
He's nowhere. He's nowhere. And they've also acquired Charlie Coyle to help that depth as well. And he, outside of what, a point?
He's got 1 goal -2.
Yeah. So these guys that you brought in throughout the entire season, outside of really Blackwood, they haven't been able to get going, and that includes Natchez. And we've seen this with Dallas every single year. Their depth is so good that they have 12, 13, 14 guys with the point already just through 3 games. And we saw who was it? It was Blackwell with an overtime game-winning goal. Like, the Avalanche aren't getting that production. And
Right.
the Stars, like, of course, needing a guy like Robertson and Heiskanen helps, but Harley has stepped up in Heiskanen's absence since the Four Nations. You have a Sagan who's been great, a Marchman, a Sam Steele playing 4th-line minutes last year's playoffs, came up big in that series against Vegas and in the second round against Colorado too. And he has 2 points in 3 games at the moment as well. It's not about the sum of points for your forwards, like McKinnon has 4 points. That's great and all. But where's the rest of the team contributing? We saw Nichushkin's nice little nifty goal where on a 4-on-4 a couple games ago where he ended up just, having Duchesne lost and he was one-on-one with Ottinger and buried it. But outside of that, though, he hasn't been productive, and he has this reputation of being a guy where he shows up in the playoffs. So I want to see more from him, and I think Colorado, if they want to get out of the series and get into the second round, they need some guys to step up, man. They really do.
Yeah, I look, dude, I respect you, but you're in the media now. That's what you're doing here. I'm not in the media. I'm just a fill-in here, so I can say this and I can go and I'll feel good about this.
Okay.
You people in the media, you like to dog on Cody Ceci because he's an easy guy to make fun of.
Okay.
But you know what? I sit there and I was watching game 1, and I want to give a shout out to him because he deserves this.
Okay.
There was a 2-on-1 for Colorado, and I think it was McKinnon. I could be wrong. I think it was McKinnon passed the puck, and CC just stuck his stick out there, blocked the pass like it was nothing. And I said, you know what? That's what you need. You need guys like Cody CC to step up, and
Cody
I think
Cece does
he
help.
deserves that. Look. Everyone kind of laughed at the whole CC and Granlund, like, well, what's going on here? I'm not. I'm not going to be like, oh, revisionist history. CC's a -3. I get that. Okay, whatever. But it's little plays like that you sit there and you go, oh wow, who made that? Like I literally sat there. I was on the couch. I had a Coors Light. Cracked that open, and I said, who the hell was that? And I was like, wait, that was Cody Cece. And that's what you need. You got to get guys like him going. And like I said, he's a -3. But I mean, if he can keep kind of making those plays, like realistically, like we said, if they can keep going until Miro comes back, Cody Cece won't be playing 23-18. You know what I mean? He's
Yeah.
he's going to move down. Miro will come back in. Things will even out, and I think it's only going to get better the longer the series goes because you're going to get those guys back. Maybe not Robertson, but I mean Miro's skating again. Hopefully he's back in there. That'd be cool. I did choose Dallas in this one just because I thought that overall they were the stronger team, but this is another one I think like Florida, Tampa. Probably most of the people thought that whoever wins this series goes on all the way.
Let's see some more Mikko Rantanen production too. He's been a ghost.
Yeah, the funniest thing about him is he. I think the only time I've really noticed him was when he got ran over by Landeskog.
Yeah.
So I mean, all right, like he's he's got to be better, but again, when you have guys like Blackwell, like Dodonov, like Sam Steele who are stepping up, you don't need him to do everything. You just need him to keep going. The one guy though that I'm kind of surprised has nothing is Duchesne.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. We'll see what happens there. Maybe Duchesne kind of turns it on a little bit. He's fast. He's becoming like a team guy here. I was listening to an interview when he was with John Scott, and they talked about how for Dallas they don't really care who scores the goal. They don't care about their points. They care about the wins. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. These guys aren't in it for themselves. They're trying to do everything for the team, and hopefully this series just kind of keeps going. And like I said, if they can get Miro back, that could be huge.
The last series on our agenda in the Western Conference, the Winnipeg Jets against the St. Louis Blues. Winnipeg is up in the series 2-1. St. Louis with a dominant win last night against the Winnipeg Jets. I have been impressed with the St. Louis Blues to an extent because I legitimately thought, even though they came into the series on a heater, best team in the entire league since Four Nations, thought maybe Winnipeg would take care of business. Game 1, Hellebuck didn't look great. It looked like he was nervous. Game 2, Hellebuck looked phenomenal. Game 3, playoff Helly is back. St. Louis was at the Enterprise Center. I have been very impressed with this entire Blues team in terms of pace, physicality. The series has been very physical. I want to see a little bit more production out of the Winnipeg Jets' depth. Kyle Connor and Scheifele have been phenomenal. They've been stepping up. But if we can get a little bit more production from the blue line, from the depth from the Winnipeg Jets, they could end up winning the series in 5 games. But I don't know. We'll see because, I mean, the Jets allowed Cam Fowler to have 5 points at the moment. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at our text right now where you were kind of saying that you didn't really think that the Blues were going to do anything here.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the one who said, hey, guess what? I think the Blues are a good team. But in all seriousness, the Blues, they had to fight and claw their way through everything after the Four Nations. They weren't getting those easy wins. They had to really just do everything they can to win because anytime that they didn't win, it meant that their season could be over.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you're seeing here is that the Blues are continuing to play that playoff game. I mean, game 1 was an incredible game. St. Louis had the lead for a little bit. And obviously the Jets came through. Game 2, very close, 1-goal game. And then, like you said, too, now they're back in St. Louis. St. Louis actually blows the doors off them. And you start looking at Hellebuck, and you got to question him during playoffs. Last year I could say, okay, whatever. They played against the really hot Colorado Avalanche, and maybe he just had an off day. But you take a look, and he really hasn't looked great outside of a couple big saves here. Obviously, game two, he only allowed the one, but I mean, if he's not going, the Jets could be in some trouble there. Obviously, the Jets do have some really good depth. Alex Iafallo, he's been really good. You take a look at the Jets roster, Scheifele, Connor, those guys are leading the way. It's great to see, but I'm waiting for Cole Perfetti. I mean, I know that he probably should have had that goal that it looked like it was in the net, but they said it wasn't. But once Cole Perfetti gets going, I think that could be the dagger that Winnipeg needs.
Yeah, and I love that you brought up Cole Perfetti because he's an X factor in this series. If he gets going, the Winnipeg Jets, they can make a deep playoff run. And I'm not saying that they can't without him, but with how Hellebuyck's playing right now with the 3.52 goals against and an 8.44 save percentage, I don't care if that's inflated by game three. Guess what? They still played a hockey game. It still happened. His playoff stats, historically, outside of that 2017-18 Western Conference Finals run, he hasn't been great. And last year, I blamed it on the defense partially. That defense did not help him out one bit. This year, granted, the Blues are picking a lot of corners against Hellebuyck, but he's also letting in some goals that he saves normally. That you see in the regular season, he saves with ease, and he's not having that production. And with the St. Louis Blues, you're getting great production from a Buchnevich, a Thomas, a Kyrou has 2 points in 3 games. And Jordan Binnington right now, he's not playing the best hockey we've ever seen, but he's holding in there. He's just doing his job. And I'm also very impressed with Jimmy Snuggerud, also known as Jimmy Snuggy. I love that nickname. I will say that till the day I die. He has 2 points in 3 games. He's playing to his strengths. He's playing to his shot, which is the best part of his game. And the Blues feel like they really trust him already. He had, I think, 7 or 8 career not playoff games, regular season games coming into the playoffs. He hasn't backed down from the physicality of this, kind of like a Ryan Leonard. And you're seeing the feistiness from him in the series against it could be an intimidating Jets team, a team that just is coming off a President's Trophy, a goalie that is about to win his 3rd Vezina Trophy, and he's hanging in here. And this Blues team, again, like I said, I don't think the Blues are going to come out of this alive, but they've impressed me a little bit. They're coming in, they're showing up. They kind of feel almost like, I'd say they kind of feel like a Minnesota Wild, for example, except they're down in the series instead of a team that's experienced, but they just don't feel like they have that it factor. I mean, I guess the Wild do with Kaprizov, but the Blues, I don't feel like can go on and beat the Winnipeg Jets. Sure, you can see the Wild beating Vegas, but like we said 6 million times, Vegas can come back down even if they go down 3-1. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the stats right now, and I don't know if it's just Bennington and Hellebuck have this like weird rivalry that you really wouldn't expect. They played against each other in the Four Nations finals, and obviously Bennington got him there. And if you look at their stats right now, Bennington's got a 2.72 goals against. Hellebuck has a 3.52. I mean, that's almost a full goal difference right there.
yeah.
Then you take a look at the save percentage. It's a lot closer. Bennington's got an 8.79. Hellebuck's got an 8.44. But still, Hellebuck's supposed to be like the best goalie in the world. Maybe number 2, depending on how you feel about like a Shesterkin or a Vasilevsky. But like realistically, Hellebuck is supposed to be a top 3 goalie in the world right now. And Binnington just seems to have his number. We'll see what happens in game 4. I picked the Blues to have a big upset originally. At first, it wasn't looking too good, but hey, you know what? We'll see what happens now that they have the change. The big thing is, like we said, I mean, my X factor is going to be Perfetti. He's a guy who he can do everything. He can score. He makes these great plays. He's very smart with the puck. if he gets going, I think Winnipeg wins this no problem. If the Blues can kind of contain him and then figure out a way to stop Connor or Scheifele, I think they get this. But you already mentioned pretty much all the big guys for St. Louis. One guy who I want to talk about real quick is Ryan Suter. I know that he hasn't really done anything. He's a -1, all that. He's blocked 3 shots. Okay. When you have a player like him, who's at the end of his career, he hasn't won a cup, he hasn't gone those places. Teams kind of rally around them and they kind of win it for him. They kind of bring that together and they say, you know, we got to try and do this for him. It really wouldn't surprise me if a guy like Ryan Suter is kind of on the end of his career, he's going to retire or something. And it really wouldn't surprise me if that kind of motivates the Blues to kind of push a little bit harder, a little bit stronger. They've been with the guy for this season, and it would be cool to see Ryan Suter win the cup. I mean, there's other teams I'd like, other teams, other players I'd like to see more, but I mean, it would be a great story. We already talked about what would happen if Ovechkin wins it. I think if Suter tells the guys, "Hey, this is it," I do think that might give him a little extra motivation, maybe enough to take him to a game 7. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, and I think it is a must-win game for St. Louis in Game 4. If they can come out and they win on home ice, take a 2-2 series back to Winnipeg for a Game 5, St. Louis has all the momentum in the world. You can come out in Game 1 and silence that crowd right away and go up 1-0 in the first period. And all of a sudden, now Winnipeg's backs is up against the wall. The Blues, they're playing with house money. And Winnipeg, they have all the pressure in the world between Hellebuck and between winning the President's Trophy and having all of these Stanley Cup aspirations and expectations. And you have the Blues that 2 months ago, nobody thought would even sniff the playoffs. And they scratched and clawed their way, like you said, to a playoff berth. And they needed every single one of those 19 wins and every single one of those 12 straight wins to get into the playoffs, which speaks volume to this team. And this team has had adversity all season. And I will give credit to you is that a lot of these times when we see these upsets, it's because the teams that end up upsetting these better teams, they have faced adversity all season. And the one thing that the Jets haven't faced adversity, they haven't at all this season, outside of Dallas coming within 4 points of them of the division about 4 weeks ago. Outside of that, they have been cruising. They got off to that 15 straight game winning streak to start the season. They were the first team to 20 wins by about 7, and they've been on cruise control ever since.
Right, and they've had, like we said, like Hellebuck's gonna win the Vezina. I mean, I think he's going to be a Hart nominee. I don't know if he wins it, but I mean, he should be one of the finalists for it. And I mean, if Hellebuck keeps playing the way he is, it's going to be one of those questions where you have to sit there and go, is Hellebuck just the world's best regular season performer and one of the worst playoff guys? Or what is going on here? So we'll have to see what happens on that. But it would not surprise me at all if St. Louis pulls through, wins the series. It'd also not surprise me at all if Winnipeg kind of snaps it and says, you know what, we're playing our game. Hellebuck kind of becomes a player we all think he should be, and they just roll through.
Real quick, let me ask you this. If Connor Hellebuck still keeps shooting the better in the playoffs, does that eliminate him from your best goalie in the league conversation, even if he ends up, winning the Vezina and his regular season stats are insane?
That's a great question. I was having a discussion with my dad the other day about what does it mean if a player just can't get it done and when the games matter the most? I mean, the goaltending is such a weird position. As you know, I just started kind of becoming a goalie the last year. So, every single goal that goes through is not my fault. It's the defense's fault, obviously. But I still think regardless, he is a top 3 goalie, right up there with Vasilevsky and Shesterkin. But you know what? He's got to be better. He's got to be better. He can't be being outplayed by Binnington right now. What was it? 2 years ago, people were wondering if Binnington would even be in the league anymore, and now he's beating Connor Hellebuck in the playoffs right now.
Yeah, Now Bennington has showed up. He's gotten his head out of his ass. Now playing Connor Hellebuck in round one of the playoffs, and a goalie like you said, he's probably going to be a Hart finalist. I'd be shocked if he wasn't. He has been lights out this entire season.
One thing before everything's over, Zach, I got to ask you. I don't know if you've talked about it yet, but if you listened to the Canucks end of season pressers and everything, one of the big things that has been talked about was President of Hockey Operations Jim Rutherford. He says that Hughes wants to play with his brothers Jack and Luke, and apparently they're willing to give him all the money that he wants, but there's going to be outside factors that determine his future. What do you think is going on there? Is this Rutherford pretty much setting the stage so that way if Hughes ends up leaving, he can say, not our bad, like he wants to go play with his brothers, or you think that he's maybe trying to sit there and set the stage for a potential trade so that they can regain assets? Because let's face it, I don't really like Vancouver going forward. And if I were them, I would be looking to maybe move Quinn Hughes over to, try New Jersey, but he's their best player. And to me, that seemed really weird that he would even like mention that.
Yeah, we touched on a little bit about it in the beginning of our last episode, but we didn't like get super deep into it. And that those comments did come off as kind of like, are they hinting that they're going to trade Quinn Hughes? Because we saw earlier in the season when all the drama started happening between Pedersen and JT Miller that Quinn Hughes didn't want to be a part of the rebuild. I'm leaning more towards the Canucks are hinting that, well, if everything goes wrong, we'll trade him to New Jersey or whatever. Or it could be a situation where Quinn Hughes, when his contract is up, it's like, well, he walked in free agency. We tried. He doesn't want to stay here. He wants to go play, with Luke and Jack in New Jersey. And I found it funny because when I first read the quote and heard it, I'm like, there's no way that this fucker is trying to trade for Jack and Luke. Like, he's talking about trading Quinn. And
Yeah.
so I I don't know. It's very interesting because Vancouver last year they were one game away from going to the Western Conference Finals. They took Edmonton to 7 games, and I thought maybe
Without their starting goaltender
exactly without them go. And I believe Besser
and
is out too,
and
right?
Besser.
Yeah,
Who?
and Besser
Yeah,
too.
Besser was out.
Yeah. So and then coming into the season, they shit the bed, and then Miller's unhappy, Pedersen's unhappy, and Rutherford and Alvin are making everything in the locker room public, which doesn't help. These dudes need to shut the fuck up. Just don't. You don't need to say everything publicly.
Yeah,
You can keep it internal. So, if I'm the
yeah.
Canucks fan, I'm like, fuck it. I love Quinn. Trade this motherfucker. Get as much as you possibly can back.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, from what my understanding is, they're not going to bring back Besser.
Mm-hmm.
Miller's already gone. Pedersen, I mean, how many times have people talk about trading him at some point? If I'm the Canucks, I'm saying, look, we got to take a look at what Calgary just did. They lost these guys. They tried to keep going. It didn't work out. They sold off pieces. They had some good drafts. They got their young guys going. If I'm Vancouver, I'm saying, all right, what can I get for Quinn Hughes? What can I get for Pedersen, if anything? At some point, they're just going to have to try and blow it up because I don't really see them being a team that free agent right now, like let's say a Mitch Marner. Like, would he really sit there and go, "Oh, yeah, I'll go to Vancouver"? Like, it seems like everything's going well there. No, there's no way. So, they're gonna have to figure something out. But yeah, this is just a weird situation. I really have no idea what to make out of it.
You have to somehow find a way to retool because you have until July 1st to trade Pedersen before his full new no movement clause kicks in. So you have to make a decision too. And I'm sure they've clearly already had talks and they value Pedersen a lot higher than most teams around the league do. The one offer, I know it's kind of hometown ish, but Buffalo, I'm a Sabres fan, as most of you guys are aware of. The Sabres reportedly offered them Byram and Cousins and for Pedersen, and the Canucks said no. So the Canucks are clearly valuing Pedersen like a 100-point player, in which right now he's not a 100-point player.
Yeah. I guess we'll figure it out, but I don't know. Something seems pretty weird and fishy over in Vancouver.
Is that all? Cool.
Yeah,
That's all?
that's all.
Okay, sweet. That's
Yeah.
going to end it for today's episode. If you guys enjoy all of our content, all of our socials are down below, as well as the subscribe button and bell. Thank you again, Matt, for joining in a very, I guess, last-second decision because Preston, unfortunately, was not able to join me. So, again, thank you for joining. Thank you guys for listening and watching, and we'll see you guys in our next episode.